Episode 311. I'm not ready for this. She felt panicky for a moment and then comforted herself with the thought that she was with Dario. I'm taking you to see... David began but stopped himself when he saw Dario glaring at him in the mirror, warning him to be quiet. Dario's expression quickly changed to one of doting love when Jade looked at him. David wiped his brow with the back of his hand, relieved to have escaped his friend's wrath. He'd almost given the game away and revealed where they were really going. David looked in the mirror again at Dario's face. He should have been an actor, David thought. He would be far better than any of the movie stars around and would put them all to shame. As David drove along a country road with trees on either side, Jade felt that something was wrong. If we're going for something to eat, why are we going to such a remote place? There can't be a restaurant all the way out here, she thought. She frowned slightly, and it occurred to her that the two men in the car were hiding something from her. She pulled on her husband's sleeve and asked nervously, Dario, aren't we going for something to eat? Is there a restaurant out here? You'll find out soon, he replied mysteriously, and gently tapped her nose with his finger. David observed his friend in the mirror. How did Jade manage to transform the cold and aloof Dario into a doting husband? He's utterly besotted with her, he thought. From the headlights, Jade could see that the countryside was beautiful, and she could make out a stream by the side of the road. I'd like to come here during the day, she thought appreciatively. They drove toward what appeared to be a grand villa surrounded by a tall fence. Beautiful rose bushes were intertwined in the fence, giving it the feel of a grand residence. It was clearly the home of a very wealthy family. They parked outside the house. Jade gazed out of the window and saw a tall and imposing front door, arched windows, and several stone outbuildings, all of which looked stylish in a timeless way as if they were from another era. There were vines creeping up the building in places, and there was a pointed tower, lending the whole building a fairy tale quality that was classic rather than fashionable. The walls were white, light red tiles adorned the roof, and a great deal of effort had clearly gone into making the property symmetrical and functional, while also being very beautiful in a traditional German architecture style. Jade's eyes widened in disbelief. I've never seen such a beautiful home in my whole life, she thought. She looked in wonder at the building for what seemed like a long time before she finally spoke. Dario, what is this place? Have we come here for dinner? She asked. This can't be a restaurant. It looks like someone's house, she thought, starting to panic. Surely this can't be Dario's house. This is your husband's family home, David blurted out. No, it can't be, Jade replied in shock. Although he only confirmed what she had already suspected, the revelation still came as a shock to her. My God, Dario, is this really your family home? She asked. She took a deep breath, feeling both intimidated and excited. Dario nodded, and Jade felt as if she was going to explode. Damn, this place is enormous, she exclaimed. Jade thought of the neighborhood she had grown up in, which was like a slum in comparison. It was like comparing heaven and earth. She felt wrong to have had the start in life that she did. She also felt scared at what this meant for her now. Why have you brought me here? And why did you say that you were going to take me out for dinner? She asked, feeling completely unprepared for the situation that she had found herself in. Dario took her hand in his and looked at her with calm eyes. She felt his warmth flow to her heart, and her heart rate slowed. I was afraid that if I told you where we were going, you might not come, he said in a deep, sexy voice that almost hypnotized her. Jade frowned. That's true, she thought. If he had told me where we were going, I probably wouldn't have come. You shouldn't have let me come empty-handed. I just can't turn up at your family home without bringing a gift. It's rude. Can we drive back to the city to pick something up? I want to buy something, she said, desperately thinking of what would be an appropriate present to bring a family that was so rich. I don't have enough money to buy them something nice enough, she thought worriedly. Dario ran his fingers through her hair tenderly and smiled. Jade, they're just happy that you can come over. Why would they want you to bring them anything? He said soothingly. Jade pulled her jacket around her as if she was hiding, and she resolved not to get out of the car. I'm not going in unless I have something to take, she protested. Dario, you should go in on your own. I'll wait for you out here. Anyway, what if they don't like me? I'm definitely not ready for this, she thought miserably. Episode 312. Welcome home. Dario sensed her nervousness and pulled her into his arms. He reached out his hand and touched the dragon bracelet on her wrist. Don't worry, you're already their future daughter-in-law. They've even given you a betrothal gift, Dario said with a triumphant grin. What betrothal gift? Jade asked, confused. David had been Dario's friend since he was young, and he knew the story of the bracelet and its significance. Oh my God, Dario, your mother gave her the bracelet? David said as he turned to Jade. He saw her puzzled expression and he explained further. That bracelet is an antique passed down through the Foster family. Miss Winslet, it seems like they've already accepted you into the family. Congratulations, he said excitedly. Jade looked at both David and Dario in turn and then withdrew further into her own depressive thoughts. But this was given to me by the Adele Barracu Company. What has it got to do with the Foster family? She wondered. She blinked her eyes in a daze, her face full of confusion. How come I don't understand what you guys are talking about? Can you explain it more clearly? She asked. David looked disappointed in her. Miss Winslet, you are so pretty, but yet so silly sometimes, he said good-naturedly. Despite David's attempt at humour, he felt Dario's hostile stare in response to the word silly. David's mind worked quickly as he calculated the best way to get himself out of the situation. What I mean to say is that Miss Winslet is beautiful and smart. He looked at Jade and tried again to explain the bracelet's history to her. That bracelet has been passed down through generations of the Foster family, from mother to daughter-in-law. If Dario's mum gave it to you, it means that she's accepting you into the family, he said patiently. No, that can't be right, Jade said, as she looked at the intricate bracelet on her wrist. I had no idea that it was a family heirloom, she thought. By the way, are you guys ever actually going to get out of the car? David asked in mock frustration. I feel like we've been sitting here all evening. I'm happy to drive them where they want to go as long as I get to drive this car, but I don't want to sit here chatting all night, he thought, patting the steering wheel fondly. Jade became even more nervous at the thought of getting out of the car. She held onto Dario's forearm and sat frozen like a statue. In response, Dario held her two slender wrists and kissed her passionately. The atmosphere in the car changed, and David began to feel uncomfortable. Damn it! I wouldn't have come here if I'd known I would end up sitting here while they're getting it on, he thought grumpily. Dario ignored his friend's presence, while Jade felt embarrassed, but after a moment's reluctance, she relaxed into his embrace. Noticing that the kissing showed no sign of abating, David flung open the door and got out. He was surprised to find that there was a group of people outside the car. Although it was dark outside, the house's outside lights shone brightly and illuminated the area well. The staff who worked for the Foster family had congregated around the car to greet the visitors, and they could clearly see Dario and Jade kissing in the back. David saw the looks of disappointment on the maids' faces and heard their lamentations that Dario was no longer single. My God, is that the young Mr. Foster kissing a woman in the back seat? No, I don't believe it. It can't be him at this time of the night. Mr. Foster has brought a woman back. I wonder if they're going to get married. I'd never heard of him having a girlfriend before. No, I don't believe it. The maids leaned toward the car to get a better look. One of them got carried away and touched the side as she tried to get a better view. David shouted angrily, What do you think you're all doing? Aren't you meant to be working? Get away from the car and stop gawking at Mr. Foster and his wife. The maid shuffled away from the car shamefaced, but with obvious sorrow at the news that Dario was already married. One of them composed herself and greeted David. Good evening, Mr. Swan. The others took the cue and lined up in a row, also greeting him. David nodded in satisfaction, and seeing that his temper had subsided, they began to whisper among themselves. Mr. Swan must be jealous of young Mr. Foster. Yes, Mr. Foster has a wife and he's still single. That's right. David overheard the comments and confronted them again. What nonsense are you talking about? All I have to do is make a phone call and there's a line of beautiful women queuing up to be my girlfriend. He paused for a moment and then shouted, Do you all want to get fired? I can have pretty much any woman I want, he thought. The problem is that I'm only interested in Monica and she's not interested in me. Jade heard the commotion outside and hurriedly pushed Dario away. When she noticed the small group of women by the car, she blushed furiously. As if it isn't bad enough that I'm here to meet Dario's family, there's a gaggle of women staring at us kissing, she thought angrily. Dario lowered his head, touched her chin tenderly, and then leaned close to her ear with a wicked smile on his face. How do you feel now? Are you still afraid? He whispered as he reached out his hand and gently swept her hair behind her ears. She looked at him gloomily. I'm not afraid anymore. But I don't like being watched by a bunch of strangers as if I'm some kind of animal in a zoo, she exclaimed. She glared at him and said, Dario, do you not have any shame? Did you know that housewomen were out there? Of course, Dario replied simply. Just as she was about to remonstrate with him further, he unceremoniously pulled her out of the car. When the servants saw the two of them stepping out, their professionalism took over, and they stood obediently in 2 rows with about 10 in each row. They smiled pleasantly. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Foster, they chanted in almost perfect unison. Episode 313. Introductions. Jade felt as if she was entering a film set, but she was very aware that this was reality. From among the maids, an old man with a kind smile on his face walked toward them. So, young Mr. Foster is back, and this must be Miss Winslet, right? The old man said amiably. Jade returned the smile and said, It's a pleasure to meet you. She looked at Dario and asked, Would you introduce us, please? David interjected. This is the housekeeper. You can call him Johnson. He was always good to your husband when he was growing up. Jade looked at the old man, smiled again and said politely, Hello, Johnson. I'm Jade Winslet. Very good. Miss Winslet is both beautiful and polite. Please come on in. Mr. and Mrs. Foster are waiting for you, Johnson said with a kind smile. He seemed genuinely happy to meet me, Jade thought happily, but the mention of Dario's parents reignited her fears, and she felt her palms begin to sweat. Dario held her hand as they walked toward the magnificent villa under the gaze of the envious maids. They climbed some marble steps and entered a grand hallway with an expensive-looking red carpet. Jade was shocked by the splendor. It's like a palace from a fairy tale, she thought. They walked through to a high-ceilinged hall where a group of people was sitting on what looked like very comfortable furniture. Jade recognized Dario's elder sister Diane, as well as his mum and dad, Sharon and Donald. As she looked around, she noted that there were several people whom she didn't recognize. She was surprised to see her favorite actress, Monica Harper, there as well. Jade thought back to how she had misunderstood Monica's relationship with Dario and cringed at the memory. I suppose she is his cousin, so I shouldn't be too surprised that she's here. At least Monica doesn't know about that misunderstanding, she thought with relief. Monica was also surprised to see Jade, as she had no idea that Jade and Dario knew each other. No wonder she has risen so quickly if she has Dario to help her, Monica thought disgruntledly. Monica had been busy working on a film set and had come specifically because Sharon had told her that Dario was bringing his girlfriend home to meet the family. She had no idea that it would be Jade. So this is the woman who caused my sister to try to kill herself, Monica thought darkly. When David saw Monica, he smiled broadly and walked toward her. Monica, I didn't know that you'd be here too. I've missed you, he said brightly as he sat down next to her and gazed at her in adoration. Monica ignored him at first in her usual fashion, her expression indifferent, but then she said unhappily, There are many seats. Why do you have to sit next to me? It smells good next to you. Anyway, almost all of the other beauties here are taken, so this is definitely the place to sit, he said, confidently grinning at her. He had cleverly complimented all the other women in the room, and his humor seemed to ease the atmosphere. Sharon and David both laughed, and Jade began to feel more comfortable. Monica glanced at David disdainfully, shuffled her body slightly away from him, and then looked at Jade. Hello, Jade. Do you remember me? I remember you from the film set, Monica said. Jade was excited that one of her idols was talking to her, and she replied deferentially, Of course, I remember. I loved watching you act, and I watched your scenes whenever I got the chance. When Jade spoke, a look of contempt flashed across Monica's face that would have been easy to miss, but she quickly recovered her amiable expression and said, Is that so? I've seen you act too, and you seem to know what you're doing. By the way, when did you and Dario get together? I was beginning to think that Dario didn't like women. Jade wondered what Monica meant, and she started to feel uncomfortable again. Monica was wearing a sexy blue dress with slits down the side that revealed her slender legs. She looked so beautiful, Jade thought enviously. Monica looked at Dario and said, Dario, why have you hidden your girlfriend for so long? Were you afraid that someone would take her away? Well, Jade is going to be like my sister now, so make sure that you treat her well, or you'll have me to deal with. Jade was moved by Monica's display of support, and she smiled happily. I heard rumors that she was cold, but she seems really nice, Jade thought. Don't worry, Monica. Dario is always very good to me, Jade said with obvious sincerity, her face full of happiness. Monica felt bitter to see Jade so happy with Dario while her sister was still lying in the hospital, but she maintained her polite smile. An almost imperceptible trace of malice flashed across her pretty eyes, but it went unnoticed. Dario has been single for a very long time, so we were beginning to think that he preferred men, she said with a smirk. Now that he has you to satisfy him, I bet he's insatiable. Well, make sure you go easy on her, Dario. I'm afraid that her slender body won't be able to take it, she said. Jade was shocked to hear her idol speak in such a frank way in front of Dario's parents. She blushed and looked at the floor. She sounds like Dario when he's at his most vulgar. You can tell that they're related, she thought. Jade stayed silent, afraid that Monica would taunt her more. Episode 314. She's not worthy. Jade subconsciously took a step back, and Dario immediately gave Monica a cold glance and put his arm around Jade's waist. Monica met Dario's gaze as if challenging him. David, who was still sitting beside Monica, continued to look at her like a puppy who was waiting to be stroked. He shuffled closer to her and said, "Monica, why don't you chat with me for a while? I want to enjoy your company too." She turned her head toward him and slapped him in the face. "Get away from me, you pest," she exclaimed. The slap had only been a light one, and David's smile widened. "I won't wash my face ever again," he said dreamily, stroking his cheek where her hand had touched it. There was some laughter, and Donald coughed loudly to distract the guests from the exchange. If David wasn't a close friend, I wouldn't have invited him here, Dario thought. Jade looked at Dario's parents apologetically, suddenly aware that she hadn't greeted her hosts when she had entered. "Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Foster," she said, with a polite smile. She was relieved to see that they both smiled back. She had feared that they would be hostile toward her, as had often been the case in scenes she had acted in where parents met their daughter-in-law. The theme of a young woman being mistreated by a wicked mother-in-law was a common one in scripts. How could the parents of such a brilliant man as Dario be anything other than lovely? She thought. A shame that she had ever thought otherwise. His parents are probably just like him. Dario noticed that the interaction was going well, and she sneered. Dario's grandma watched from the side. "Who does this woman think she is? She thinks that she can come into our home and steal away my grandson," she thought. She spoke with a confident tone. "Dario, you haven't had a girlfriend for all these years, and now you bring this woman here to our home." She was the head of the family, and she had a commanding and authoritative aura. She was wearing a vintage dark blue dress and delicate glasses, and her hair was tied up high. She looked very elegant and refined. Jade was wondering who she was when Dario whispered, "She's my grandma, Isabel." Jade's eyes widened in surprise. She looks too young to be Dario's grandmother. She smiled at them and said, "Hello, it's nice to meet you." "Miss Winslet is too polite," Isabel said crankily, as she looked Jade up and down as if she was inspecting her and wasn't pleased with what she saw. Dario put his arm around his wife's waist again and smiled respectfully at his grandma. "And what would Jade have to do to fit your requirements, Grandma?" Dario asked politely in a deep voice. David attempted to ease the tension again. "Look at this guy. He's nearly 30 years old, and he's brought his girlfriend home. I thought that he might stay single forever and keep me company, but he's leaving me behind," he said, in an attempt at humor. Isabel seemed deeply suspicious of Jade. She leaned back on the sofa and looked at her with disdain before she spoke again in an offhand manner. "How can a mere actress be worthy of my grandson? There are many rich and powerful young women who would love to marry you, and you go ahead and marry an actress. Are you trying to anger me to death?" she asked. The room fell silent as the atmosphere grew colder. She had said actress, as if it was a filthy word, and Jade felt herself wanting to cry. She already felt inferior to those around her, and Isabel's comments had confirmed her worst fears. She's right. I'm just an actress, and I'm not good enough for Dario, she thought. David had listened to what Isabel had said, and his gaze turned to Monica, afraid that the old woman's words would anger the object of his desire. He sat beside her and massaged her shoulders, waiting nervously to see how she would react. "That might be what people used to think about actresses, but it's different now. Miss Winslet is very popular. She's a star, and a lot of people like her," David said, trying to appease all parties. "So what? She is just a high-end actress," Isabel retorted. "Acting is just showing off. A well-brought-up girl should know to stay at home," she added. Then she turned her eyes to Monica and softened her voice. Monica is different, of course. She's the apple of her family's eye. She only went into acting for a bit of fun. Sooner or later, she'll inherit the family business and settle down properly. I would much rather Monica be my granddaughter-in-law, but unfortunately, Monica and Dario are cousins, and that sort of thing is frowned upon these days. Please don't say any more, Isabel, David said beseechingly. Monica is already spoken for. You can't take her away from me, he added, devastated at the thought of Monica and Dario together. Monica, however, had enjoyed hearing what Isabel had said about her, and she was also pleased to see that Jade would have to navigate dealing with her if she wanted to be accepted into the foster family. Jade can think again if she thinks it's going to be easy for her to integrate herself with this family, Monica thought smugly. But Monica also felt pain at the truth that she and Dario could never be together. Monica smiled at Isabel and said, Grandma, how can you say that? This is the woman Dario has chosen. Besides, I don't think Jade is all that bad. Her acting is very good, and she's already become a big star in the entertainment industry. Even I would have asked for her autograph. Isabel looked at Dario with a thoughtful expression on her face. Episode 315, Grandma's Desire. Dario hugged Jade tightly and patted her shoulder to comfort her. After that, his deep and gloomy gaze moved to his grandmother. What do you mean, Grandma? Dario asked in a low voice. Isabel's expression gave nothing away. She coughed twice, then calmly said, Dario, this is your issue. You must handle it yourself, but remember that your grandfather and I have been together for years. You and I know he wants a grandchild. I want you to keep your promise to him as soon as possible. Don't let him have any regrets, all right? Jade's face creased into a frown. A grandchild? She thought despondently, but I'm too busy and don't have time for a baby. I'm a bad wife, and I'd be a bad mother. When his grandfather was mentioned, Dario's face clouded over. There was a trace of pain in his eyes. I don't think you should worry about that, David said, butting in. Dario is strong. It's only a matter of time before he and Jade have a child. Jade still has dreams to fulfill. I'm sure they'll start a family when they're ready. He turned to look at Diane. Besides, Diane isn't even married yet. As her younger brother, how can Dario have the cheek to have a baby before her? Diane, who was looking stunning in her elegant outfit and delicate makeup, glared at David fiercely and said impolitely, Why are you here? It's not like you have anything to do with any of this. Mind your own business. You don't even have a girlfriend. And you don't have a boyfriend, so what gives you the right to criticize me? David responded bluntly. These children of mine, always trying to outdo one another, except in matters of the heart, Sharon thought. As Diane and Dario's mother, she was naturally looking forward to seeing her children married and starting their families. Diane, what David said makes sense, Sharon said, puckering her brow. You're not young anymore. Don't work so hard and find a boyfriend. I can't wait to have a wedding and hug my grandchildren. Diane gave David a fierce look. She wished he hadn't brought her into this. The present situation had nothing to do with her in the first place, but now they were turning on her. She stood up abruptly and said, I'm leaving. I have urgent business to take care of. You guys carry on. Goodbye. With that, she hastily left the room. Sharon looked at her daughter and felt helpless. Whenever they talked about her settling down and starting a family, Diane would find all kinds of excuses to escape. She's too serious about her career, she thought in despair. Diane frowned as she walked out of the villa. Her beautiful eyes filled with tears, and a shadow of pain crossed her face. She took a deep breath as memories bubbled to the surface. Diane, please wait for me. When I'm successful, I'll marry you, he had said. I'll wait for you, she had replied. Sharon watched helplessly as her daughter retreated from the room. Then she turned to her husband, who was seated beside her. Donald, it's all your fault. You've spoiled her. You need to find Diane a boyfriend, or I'll have to teach you a lesson. Donald was famous for spoiling his wife, and he would normally do everything possible to please her, but this was a tall order. Yes, of course, I'll get on it straight away. Is that all you want? He answered teasingly. And he must be even better than Dario, Sharon continued seriously. When Donald heard this, he was taken aback and chuckled dryly. Hey, that request seems extreme. Anyway, there's no one better than Dario. Do you want Diane to be single for the rest of her life? You're not taking me seriously. If you don't agree to find her a suitable boyfriend, you can sleep on the sofa tonight. Sharon snapped at him. Donald felt helpless. It was clear he had spoiled his daughter and his wife. but he didn't dare to say it out loud. Jade was watching the interaction between the two in silence. She'd never seen a couple married for so long be so outspoken and attuned to each other. The foster family had certainly refreshed her view of love and relationships. Dario could tell what she was thinking at a glance. He leaned close to her and whispered, "You'll get used to it. Hopefully, we'll be the same when we get old." His voice was very loving. Listening to Dario's words made Jade's face flush and her body filled with warmth. The love that the family shared was charming. It was beyond her expectations. Donald saw that Sharon was getting annoyed and tried to appease her. He turned to Dario and said in a commanding tone, "You're also spoiled. I'm giving you 1 year to start a family. That shouldn't be too difficult." Jade felt highly pressured and became a little nervous. She didn't want to disappoint Dario's family. She might have to give up on her dreams. Just as Jade was about to respond, Dario interrupted her and said, "Dad, I'm afraid that's impossible. We plan to start a family in 3 years." He had thought about it carefully. Yes, 3 years. 3 years was long enough for Jade to establish herself in the entertainment industry and realize her professional dreams. If she took a break to have a baby after 3 years, people wouldn't forget her. If she chose to start a family then, he would respect her choice and unconditionally support her, even if she decided to become a full-time mum. As long as she was happy, he would be content. Jade was touched by Dario's words. She felt extremely lucky to have a husband like him. But Dario's grandmother didn't share her sentiments. "What? We're getting old. We might not be here in 3 years. Your grandfather's health is failing. He wants to see his great-grandchild before he dies. It's not all about you," she said angrily. Dario remained calm. "Grandma, don't worry. I'm doing everything I can to get Grandpa the best medical treatment. I also want him to hold his great-grandchild," he said, trying to win her over. Isabel's expression was unpleasant. She looked over at Jade unhappily. "There are so many rich and powerful women. Why did you choose her? What's so good about her? I can introduce you to better women," she said grumpily. Would Jade give up her career to please his family? Episode 316. His younger sister. "What do you mean? Jade is my choice. Respect that," Dario said coldly. Even though Dario respected and loved Isabel, he wasn't about to let her talk about his wife that way. "Don't you even want to think about it?" Isabel responded. She could see that Dario was unhappy with what she had said, and she started to feel uncomfortable. "I don't need to think about it. I've made my choice," Dario said firmly, holding Jade's hand tightly. An awkward silence had settled over the room when a teenage girl in a ponytail and a pink dress came rushing in, breaking the strained atmosphere. Her round face was open and fresh, and she had a broad smile. Although she was young, it was clear she'd grow into a stunningly beautiful woman. The moment she saw Dario, she rushed over, hugged him, and shouted excitedly, "Wow, you're finally back! I missed you so much." "How come you're back from school so soon?" he asked. When he saw her, his face relaxed and his eyes became gentle. "I knew you were coming, so I came to see you as soon as I could." The girl's excitement at seeing Dario was evident. Jade looked at Dario in confusion and asked, "This is?" Before Dario could introduce the girl, she blinked her big, beautiful eyes at Jade and with a loud laughter, rushed over to her and gave her a big hug. "You must be Jade Winslet. I've seen you on TV. You're beautiful. No wonder you conquered my brother's heart. Can I have your autograph?" Jade's face clouded with confusion. "Dario, do you have a younger sister?" "Didn't I tell you?" Dario said innocently. What a welcome surprise. She's delightful, friendly, and cute, Jade thought. Sharon had not intended to have more children after Diane and Dario. She was more than happy with the two of them. She was in her 40s and hadn't thought she was able to have any more when she and Donald stopped using contraceptives because it hadn't seemed necessary to them. Then, one day, Donald had noticed that Sharon was putting on weight. He hadn't said anything because, in his eyes, she was always beautiful. While Sharon had thought she was putting on weight because of overeating and had gone on a diet to lose weight. However, when that too did not help, it was Dario who had convinced her to go to the doctor for a checkup. Only then were they shocked to find that she was pregnant. It had been completely unplanned. She and Donald were worried and had thought about a termination, but it was Dario who had persuaded them to keep the baby. Deborah had always had a special bond with her brother. Maybe it was because he had given her life by convincing their parents to keep her. "Jade, come and see my room. I've got lots of posters of you," Deborah said. She had ignored everyone except for Dario and Jade. She grabbed Jade's arm and pulled her out. The room was all pink, simply a dream princess room. Jade moved closer to the dressing table to take a look at the posters and pictures of her. Deborah had quite a collection. "She's got photos of me sleeping in my bed," she thought in shock. It must have been Dario who had taken them and given them to her. She hadn't expected Dario to take photos of her while she was sleeping. She had not been aware, and it seemed he had taken them for his sister. She was extremely touched. From the moment Deborah had first seen Jade, and she had not stopped staring at her, Jade was starting to feel uncomfortable and said, "Debbie, stop looking at me like that. You're making me feel awkward. You're just so beautiful. No wonder Dario chose you as his girlfriend. He's amazing. I told him I had a crush on a big star called Jade Winslet and wanted her to be my sister-in-law. I didn't expect he'd listen to me." Jade was dumbfounded and didn't know how to respond. "How long have you two been together now? You know he's been single for all these years, right? Have you managed to break down his barriers?" Debbie asked, looking at Jade curiously. Jade froze. She didn't have any clue about how to respond to this tirade of questions. She was saved by Dario's heavy, sexy voice, interrupting from the doorway. "Debbie, don't you have homework to do?" Dario asked with a stern face, but his eyes were full of love. Episode 317. It Doesn't Matter. Debbie stuck her tongue out at him and said mischievously, "I'll finish it later. I'm chatting with my sister-in-law." Turning to Jade, she said, "So, how is my brother?" Jade blushed and said, "He's good." She was saved by Dario, who stepped into the room and grabbed Debbie's collar. "All the talking is done. Now, go to your room and freshen up," he said playfully. Jade was relieved. Dario whispered something in Debbie's ear. Jade couldn't hear what he said, but guessed it was about her from their expressions. A mischievous smile came to Debbie's face, and she giggled. Turning to Jade, she said, "So it was you who made the first move." Jade extended her hands in front of her chest and made a gesture like stabbing herself in the heart. "Since when do I take the initiatives?" she thought. Then she remembered the first time she had met Dario. She'd been so drunk that she had forcefully kissed him and stroked his muscular body. She had even tried to undress him. Maybe that's what he's referring to by me making the first move. But he shouldn't tell Debbie that, Jade thought. I would lose my reputation. Dario then gave Debbie a stern look and pointed at the door. He knew that if the conversation continued, Jade would be horrified with Debbie's never-ending questions and would want to hide herself from facing her. Debbie seemed to be the innocent little sister while Dario was the proper gentleman. Yet the conversation between them was so candid, and she was annoyed that they hadn't taken her feelings into account. The situation was extremely awkward, and her face was flushed with discomfort. Debbie walked to her room, put her hands on her hips, and pointed at Dario. "This is my room. You can't come, but Jade can." Jade smiled as Debbie walked inside her room. Dario was overjoyed that Debbie had so obviously taken to Jade. Once Debbie left, Jade asked Dario, "Why did you tell your sister that? She shouldn't know. She's still a child." "Tell her what?" Dario responded innocently. He enjoyed teasing Jade and liked seeing her blush. "Dario?" Jade snapped. Seeing that she was angry, Dario looked at her lovingly. "She's very mature and probably more worldly wise than you are. I told her only what is adequate for her," he said, taking Jade in his arms and kissing her passionately. "Anyway, now my family knows that I'm no longer single, so why not speak of my only relationship?" It seemed that Dario wanted his family to know that their relationship was serious, and the family was so open about everything. Dario took Jade's hand and started to lead her. She followed behind him, not knowing where he was taking her. She stopped suddenly and looked at him. "What's wrong?" Dario asked. "Dario, don't tell me you want to tell your parents we're already married," she queried. Dario turned around and looked at her with his dark eyes. Then he reached out his hand gently and tidied a strand of her hair from her forehead. "It's time for them to know. Otherwise, I'll have to let you down. It's time for you to take my name and for everyone to know that you're my wife." He was feeling guilty that they had been married so long, but his parents had just met Jade. He felt that he was doing her an injustice by not publicly acknowledging that they were husband and wife. Jade shook her head and hugged him tightly. She knew that he always acted in her best interests, but she needed to consider his parents' feelings and not just her own. She leaned against him and said firmly, "I've thought about it. It's better not to tell your parents that we're married. They've only met me recently. They need time to get to know and accept me. Imagine how upset and disappointed they'll be when they learn we're married, especially your grandmother. Let's wait a little longer. Don't think you have to tell them for my sake. Promise me you won't." Dario paused in thought, then answered, "All right." Jade's words had filled his body with warmth. He hadn't expected her to be so sensible and put his family's well-being above hers. It seemed he had certainly chosen the right woman to be his wife. His heart ached with love. "Jade, I feel like I'm doing you wrong," Dario said, his eyes filled with guilt. "You aren't. I don't care about everyone knowing I'm your wife or adopting your name. Being your wife is enough, and that's all that matters." Jade's face glowed with happiness and contentment. "Having you in my life is my greatest happiness," Jade said. She raised her eyes, looked at Dario with deep affection, and beamed. "I don't care what the family thinks of me, and I certainly don't care about the status of being a wife," she thought contentedly. As long as Dario was by her side, it was enough. Dario felt his heart beat faster as he embraced Jade tightly. Episode 318, The Inside Story. "She's so fragile yet so strong," Dario thought in admiration of Jade, "and so sensible. Darling, what should I do with you? How can I ever repay you for your understanding?" He lowered his head to kiss her tender lips. After a while, Jade pulled away. This was his family's home, and she was afraid that someone might see them. She chuckled softly and said with a mock scowl, "What? Is this how you're trying to make it up to me?" Dario's lips stretched into a smile, and he hugged her more tightly. Raising his eyebrows, he retorted, "Then I'll have to make it up to you tonight." Jade blushed. "Hey, I didn't mean it like that. Is that all you think about?" She was about to hit his chest when a maid appeared. The maid was clearly surprised and became jealous when she saw Dario being so kind to Jade. The staff had never seen him be so gentle to a woman. He was usually cold and unapproachable when he was in the foster villa. In fact, she had never seen him smile like that before. His smile was warm and genuine. Jade tried to pull away from Dario's embrace, a flush creeping up her face, but Dario tightened his hold and lowered his head to rub his beard stubble across her forehead. It was such a playful gesture that she couldn't help but giggle. It seemed he was making a deliberate show of how close they were. Dario then released her and led her to a quiet, darkened room. Jade saw an old man lying there on the bed. There was someone in a white coat sitting on a chair next to him who looked like a doctor. The old man's eyes were closed and he seemed to be in pain, although it looked like he was asleep. When the man in the white coat saw Dario, he nodded and retreated. Dario gently pulled her hand and led Jade to the stools next to the bed. He indicated that she should sit and then sat down next to her. He looked closely at the old man lying on the bed, his handsome face creased with worry. The moment Jade had walked into the room, she had sensed a change in Dario. The atmosphere in the room was oppressive. "Jade, meet my grandfather," he said softly, taking the old man's hand. "Hello," Jade said quietly. He seemed to be sleeping, and she didn't want to wake him. "Grandpa, meet your granddaughter-in-law. Haven't you always wanted to meet her?" Dario said, stroking his hand, but the person lying on the bed did not respond and seemed unconscious. Dario's grandfather had less time as his condition grew serious. Dario knitted his eyebrows tightly as if he was in pain. Jade could feel his pain. She did not know when she had started noticing them, but she could feel his emotions. "Dario, I believe that Grandpa will be fine. Don't worry too much," Jade said gently, patting him on the arm to comfort him. The two sat silently at Walter's side for a long time, snuggling up and watching over him. Walter continued to sleep, and the pain on his face eased while they watched him. After about an hour, a maid entered the room and whispered, "Sir, your mother has prepared some pastries and asked that you and Miss Winslet join the family for tea." "Okay, we'll be down shortly," he answered. He continued to stare at Walter's face. His reluctance to leave his grandfather's side was evident. He took Walter's hands tightly in his and stared at them. They were so old and fragile, like dried tree bark. His heart ached to see his grandfather like that, but eventually he let go of his hand and led Jade from the room. When they arrived downstairs, They were the last to be seated around a large, luxurious table set exquisitely for tea. There were various kinds of tea and other refreshments on the table. Deborah had saved them the 2 chairs next to her and pointed at the chairs as they entered. "Jade, take a look. My mum's pastries are scrumptious. You can't miss out on them. Can I pour you some tea?" Deborah didn't know why, but she felt protective over Jade and was especially friendly. When Jade heard that the pastries had been baked by Dario's mother, she was very impressed. They certainly looked delicious. Not only was Dario's mother beautiful, but she was a great cook and baker herself. After Deborah had served Jade tea and pastries, she looked pensive. A secretive smile appeared on her face. Sharon saw Deborah's expression and patted on her thigh. "Why, Debbie, what's up with you? You're grinning like the cat who got the cream." Deborah's smile grew larger and she raised her eyebrows. Unable to contain her excitement, she tapped on the table as if to make an announcement. "That's because I know the inside story. Do you all want to know what I know?" she announced enthusiastically. Episode 319. I Only Want to Marry Her. Despite Deborah's announcement, no one at the table took any notice of her. Jade, who was sipping her tea, choked when she heard that Deborah had something to say about an inside story. She had a bad feeling. Without waiting for anyone to respond to her, Deborah continued, "Mum, I have good news for you. Your son is no longer a virgin. Isn't it something worth celebrating?" "What did you say?" Sharon asked, a complicated expression on her face. She had suspected something similar, but she didn't expect the news would come from her youngest daughter. Jade wanted the earth to open up and swallow her. She was so embarrassed, she wanted to disappear. It was bad enough that Deborah knew, but now the whole family knew. Jade was horrified. "How am I going to face them?" she wondered, lowering her head in shame. She looked across at Dario's face. He appeared calm and nonchalant. "What's the big deal? Why are you all so surprised?" Debbie thought. Dario took a sip of his tea as if nothing had happened. Then he composed himself as he wanted to announce something important and solemnly said, "That's right. Since you all know now, there's nothing to hide. I'll have to be with her for the rest of my life." The more Jade heard, the more concerned she became. David had been listening in silence and started to choke on his tea. He put down the teacup and laughed heartedly. "I can support Dario on this. It was Miss Winslet who initiated their relationship at my bar. I can clearly remember that Jade kissed Dario first." He was about to continue when Dario gave him a withering look and he stopped. Instead, he took a mouthful of pastry and chewed it slightly. Dario didn't care what David was about to say. His concern was for Jade, whose face couldn't get any redder. When Sharon heard David, she finally reacted. She looked at Jade and then at Dario. Blinking in surprise, she asked, "Dario, is what Debbie says true?" "Mum, I've already admitted it. Ask Dad how he feels when he sees you." Donald coughed, not knowing how to respond, and stayed quiet. Sharon was also stunned into silence. She was finding it hard to believe that her son had admitted publicly. Even if she hadn't fully wanted to acknowledge his relationship with Jade, she felt she had no choice. Isabel's expression changed, and there was hostility in her eyes. She seemed to look at Jade demeaningly and then pointed at the two of them. She snarled, "You two young people are shameless. You're not even married yet." "Hey, Grandma, how can you say that about my brother and his girlfriend? Weren't Mum and Dad pregnant with Diane before they married?" "Well, Mum told me," Deborah said. Isabel's face turned pale. It seemed she didn't know this and had only found out after years. She turned to Donald and said, "I didn't know this. What is wrong with you all?" She was furious. "Mum, calm down. Sharon has given me 3 children. True, I lied to you at the time and that wasn't right. But it's over now, isn't it?" Donald said. "And you are as much to blame," Isabel said, pointing at Sharon accusingly. She couldn't believe she had been kept in the dark for so long. "Enough, Mum," Sharon said. "What era do you think we're living in? Please calm down. And as for you, young lady, don't you feel ashamed about meddling in other people's private affairs?" Sharon grabbed Deborah's arm and made her sit down, indicating that she should speak no more. "I believe Gran hopes that I'm a responsible man," Dario said seriously. "Since I already have an intimate relationship with her, I think I should marry her. Even if that doesn't happen, I'll only ever love her." His eyes were filled with determination. He took hold of Jade's hand and looked at her tenderly. Jade was utterly stunned at Dario confessing his love for her openly in front of his family. Sharon also fell silent. She knew that her son was like his father. He was an emotional and stubborn person. Once he had decided on something, nothing would stop him. No one had any control over him. If he had his heart set on making Jade his wife, no one would change his mind. However, Isabel was dissatisfied. She's just an upstart, an actress. She's not worthy of marrying into the Foster family, she thought in dismay. Dario then said something that shocked everyone present. If I can't marry Jade, I'd rather be single for the rest of my life. His voice was not loud, but commanding. Episode 320, Jade in his heart. Dario's words, pronounced with resolution as he startled everyone present. Although Monica had a smile plastered across her face, in her heart she felt a piercing pain. The last thing she had expected was for Dario to fall so deeply in love with this woman. She had liked him since she was young, but in the end, he belonged to someone else. In fact, the reason she had kept trying to get him and Evelyn back together was because doing so, she could see him every day. But now, even this small hope of hers had been dashed. "What did you say, Dario?" asked his mother helplessly. "You'd be single for the rest of your life. You don't want to give me a grandson, and you think I'm opposing you." That was how she had understood his words. She didn't know what else to say. She was surprised that Jade had won over her unruly little princess Debbie in such a short time. Debbie didn't usually allow strangers to get anywhere near her, but she had taken to Jade immediately and had been very welcoming to her. "Jade is quite charming, and she even managed to captivate my perfect son," Sharon thought. "So, Mum, do you mean that you agree to accept Jade?" Dario asked with a grin. Sharon smiled. She clapped her hands and stated very reproachfully, "Even if I didn't want to, I'd have to agree. After all, she's inherited the bracelet passed down from your ancestors. I have such a clever son." Then she gave Jade a meaningful look and said seriously, "It looks like my precious son is yours to marry. This will be your home in the future. And when do you plan to start a family? You know what Dario's grandfather said, that his only wish was to hold his great-grandson." Hearing this, Jade felt a little awkward. But if this is what they wanted, she would not hesitate to give Dario a son. However, Dario's grandmother looked at her sternly. "But there's no rush to get married. Didn't Dario only just introduce you? Besides, Miss Winslet, you're so busy with filming every day. It's a real question whether you would be able to take care of Dario and the children. If the Foster family is doing well, then the women don't need to go out to work. Don't you agree, Miss Winslet?" Throughout this speech, Isabel's wrinkled face maintained a polite smile. She kept calling Jade Miss Winslet. Clearly, she wanted to keep her distance. Jade kept her displeasure off her face, but the pressure was building in her chest. She knew that Isabel had a problem with her and did not approve of her career, so she felt conflicted. Was she really prepared to give up her dreams to be with Dario? As she was hesitating, Dario grasped her hand and took a step forward. He said to his grandmother, "Grandma, I like Jade to be ambitious and different. I'm not interested in women who only know how to eat, drink and stay at home. As for marriage, I'll wait until she's ready. If she doesn't accept, then I shall wait for her my whole life." Dario had a determined tone in his voice. If she did not agree, he would never marry. Though his words conveyed respect for his grandmother, they remained strong and sharp. Despite the fact that they had already registered their marriage and were already husband and wife, Jade was still very touched by his words and believed that he would have said the same thing if they had not yet been married on paper. Isabel knew that it was useless to say anything else, so she remained silent. The atmosphere instantly turned somewhat chilly. David broke in to change the subject. "Why aren't you guys eating? Sharon's desserts are world famous. If you don't eat them, I'll scoff them all." He'd been sitting quietly on the side, sensed the atmosphere, and quickly emerged to smooth things over. As people began to eat, the atmosphere finally started to thaw. Everyone could see how Dario doted on Jade. He picked out the pastries that she liked, placed pieces in her mouth, and wiped her lips with a napkin. His parents were stunned. They had never imagined that their son, who had been pampered all his life, would be capable of taking care of someone else. This was simply unprecedented behavior. Their public display of affection was painful to David, whose single state again weighed heavily on him. Monica said nothing. Seeing the doting couple's lovey-dovey actions was too painful. When she could take no more, she made her excuses and left in a hurry. "Why did I come today?" she thought. "I'm just a clown here." When David saw Monica leaving, he hurriedly left the house to catch up with her. As Monica hurried down the street away from the villa, she noticed David was following her. "Why do you keep following me? Aren't you done yet? Can't you stop following me like a puppy?" she gasped, turning to stare at him in disgust. When did I start to hate him so much? She wondered. Isn't he always kind to me? Did it start when I realized I liked Dario, or when David told me he liked me? It's almost driving me crazy. Because I like you, David shouted crazily. But I don't like you, said Monica. Monica, don't you see? It's impossible. There is only Jade in his heart. He's completely in love with her, and I have always loved you. He rushed forward and hugged her, not caring if she resisted. He'd always hugged her and allowed her to vent her anger on him. That was their normal, but not this time. She grimaced and pushed him away. If it were not for Dario, she thought she could fall in love with this man. Episode 321. In the bedroom. Meanwhile, Jade thought it a little strange that David and Monica had rushed away, but since it was none of her business, she said nothing. The remaining guests chatted for more than an hour before the party broke up. At 10 o'clock, she started to wonder how they would return to the hotel now that David had left. Gosh, it's late, said Sharon. Jade, you might as well stay here tonight, and in the morning, Dario can take you back. No, I can't stay here, she replied somewhat bashfully. But when Sharon and Dario insisted, she eventually relented. She had not expected to stay in Dario's house the first time she visited, nor had she expected his room to be so luxurious. As soon as she entered, she was struck by its luxury. The decor glittered, the design was exquisite, and every item was priceless. The whole room flaunted its owner's wealth. What surprised her the most was the enormous round bed in the center of the room that could probably allow at least 10 people to sleep. Her eyes widened in surprise. So this is where you sleep? How can you manage in such a huge place? She realized that he had been concealing his wealth from her, and compared to what he must have been used to, he had been roughing it all this time because of her. A trace of pity appeared in her eyes. Dario, of course, spotted the change in her look. He held her tightly in his arms as if nothing had happened. He nuzzled his head against her neck and said, I knew you were coming, so I had the bed changed especially. Otherwise, how would it be good enough for us? Jade had heard enough of this kind of talk and really didn't want to hear it anymore. She pouted and turned to break free from his embrace when he suddenly picked her up in his arms and laid her on the bed. Dario, what do you want? She lowered her eyes and removed her hand from his. Noticing her shyness, Dario felt his throat grow dry and his voice become much softer. He swallowed and his Adam's apple bobbed up and down, and then, in an exceptionally low and bewitching voice, he said, I want to make love to you, of course. Dario! Shocked at his words, she twisted her body away. She had not expected that when she moved a little, she could clearly feel a familiar heat burning in her most sensitive place. Don't go, he growled impatiently. Had there not been so many people around them downstairs, he would have kissed her already. Every second he spent with her was precious. Jade lowered her head shyly and said in embarrassment, Dario, didn't I tell you? I'm on my period. 2 more days. He held tightly onto her waist and gave her his most charming smile. He then whispered into her ear, Do you really want to be bullied by me like this? I just want to kiss you. Don't you want me to be with you? Aren't you going crazy from thinking about me? She blushed at his straightforward words and glared at him fiercely. Just as she was about to push him away, his kiss was already on her tender lips. He's really too much, she thought impatiently. How can I be this kind of person? It's clearly him who wants it. She meant to reject his kiss, but the touch of his lips against hers made her entire body melt. She didn't even have the strength to push him away. In the end, she could only lie back down on the bed and allow his kiss to consume her remaining consciousness. His kiss became more and more intense as his body pressed fiercely against hers. It was as if he wanted to absorb her entire body into his own embrace, and Jade responded fervently. The two of them were locked in such a passionate kiss that Jade could hardly breathe. Soon they were burning with desire and unable to hold back any longer. Jade wanted to tell him that her period was almost finished, but just as she opened her mouth, the landline in Dario's room began to ring. She came back to her senses and looked at the old-fashioned phone. It was like an ornamental antique. She was surprised that it worked. Dario ignored it and reached his hand inside Jade's clothes, but she pushed him away. Dario, someone's calling you. It's okay, don't worry about it. He continued to embrace her, kissing her passionately, but the ringing didn't stop. It seemed apparent that the caller would not give up till someone answered. Dario's eyes turned cold. He had never thought that he would be disturbed in his own room. Who dared to interrupt him? After the phone had been ringing for 2 whole minutes, they were no longer in the mood to kiss. "Dario, why don't you answer?" she asked tentatively. "Maybe it's something urgent." By now, Dario's handsome face had completely darkened. He was angry, and he wanted to throw the phone out of the window. But at Jade's urging, he obediently answered. Before he could utter a word, his grandmother spoke. "Dario, ask Miss Winslet to come to my room. I want to speak with her." Sitting beside Dario, Jade could overhear the call. Hearing that his grandmother was looking for her, she became flustered. She didn't know why she wanted to talk to her, but she quickly got up and tidied her hair and clothes. Dario looked at her and asked, "What are you doing?" Episode 322, Grilled by Granny. "I'm straightening my clothes," Jade replied seriously. "Didn't your grandmother want to see me? I'll go over now. Tell me which room she's in." Dario felt pained at her naivety, so he put the phone down and kissed her. He was reluctant to let her leave. "You stay here. I'll go and explain it to Grandma." "Your grandma said she wanted to see me, not you. I know you have issues with her. If I don't go, then won't the conflict just get worse? For our future, I must go. I'm afraid you won't be happy after listening to what she has to say." He smoothed the hair on his forehead. His eyes were full of love. His grandmother was indeed troubled. While he himself was able to ignore anyone's opinions, Jade could not. She had already regarded his family as her family. Her body, though, slight in frame, was emitting determination from every pore. She clenched her fists and smiled brightly. "Don't worry, Dario. I'll try my best to make your grandmother like me. I don't care what she says. As long as I can be by your side, I can put up with anything." "You'll make me feel guilty if you do this. I'm so lucky to have a wife like you." He knew she was actually afraid, but her insistence on going touched him deeply. He felt that the best thing he could have ever done was to marry her. "Let's go. I'll go with you." He gripped her hand firmly, demonstrating his support. His grandmother was staying in a room on the 3rd floor, where it was relatively quiet. When she saw them enter, she glanced at the way they were holding hands and frowned. Though she had changed into her nightdress, she still looked very elegant. Sitting on the sofa, she commanded, "Dario, go back to your room. I want to talk to Miss Winslet alone." Dario did not move. He didn't want to leave. This embarrassed Isabel. Jade was afraid that his grandmother would be so angry, so she nudged him and whispered, "You can go. I'll talk to her by myself. You'll disturb us if you stay here." He pursed his lips and looked at Isabel through narrowed eyes. His tone was respectful but also forceful. "Grandma, I hope you understand one thing. Jade is the woman I love. I will not allow her to be harmed even in the slightest, whether you agree or not. She's the one I'm going to marry." After saying this, he even kissed her in front of his grandmother and left the room. When Isabel saw her grandson speaking to her so rudely, her expression turned ugly. Then she politely said to Jade, "Have a seat, Miss Winslet." "I'll stand, thank you." Isabel did not insist, but just settled into a more comfortable position on the sofa. "Miss Winslet, I think you know who you are. You're an orphan. You have no parents. You're not a young lady from a good family. You may have some fame, but you're just an actress. Do you seriously think you're worthy of our Dario?" Jade could clearly see the contempt in her eyes and knew why she looked at her like this. Indeed, what she had said was the truth, but she no longer felt inferior because she knew that Dario loved her, and she was also prepared to fight for him. Although she had already guessed what his grandmother would say to her, the bluntness of her words still stung. She blinked away the sadness from her eyes and looked dispassionately at the older woman. "I understand what you're saying, but I think that my being with him has nothing to do with my family background. Do you know that marrying him puts us in the same family?" Isabel had grown up in a rich and powerful household, so she knew what she was talking about. "I know it's very important to be a proper family," Jade replied, "but I think that sometimes one can't measure the love between two people by just considering their background. Do you think it's more important to have a well-matched family than a happy family? Do you want Dario to marry a woman he doesn't love? Do you think he'd be happy?" Jade chose her words with care, neither servile nor overbearing, but respectful and heartfelt. Isabel was instantly enraged. She glared fiercely at the unreasonable-sounding young woman and said bluntly, "Miss Winslet, do you know what love is? Forgive me for being blunt, but I can find a dozen women more beautiful than you and more worthy of Dario. Society women." Jade knew this. Of course, she also believed that she had talent, but she also knew that there were countless people who wanted to marry Dario. However, since Dario had chosen her, she would not give up. "I believe you can find a better woman than me," she replied sincerely. I also know I'm not good enough to be a perfect wife, but I'm working at it, trying to be a wife worthy of him. I love him with all my heart, and no matter what you say, I'll always do my best to make you like me. Her eyes flashed with determination. Her words surprised Isabel. She straightened her spine and stared at Jade with contempt. Tell me, how much do you want? Is 10 million enough? You people just want money, I know. In the entertainment industry, there are many people who become celebrities because they want to marry into wealthy families. Isn't that what you want? I'll give you enough money to get whatever you want. Isabel was sure that Jade wanted Dario for his money. She'd seen too many women like this. She didn't expect to be mistaken. You misunderstand me, Jade replied with a hint of anger. I like Dario, not his money. Even if he were penniless, I'd still want to be with him. You may not like me, but please do not insult me. She bit her lower lip and clenched her fists. Episode 323. Where's Evelyn? Jade had not expected Dario's grandmother to think she was the kind of woman who could be bought. When Isabel saw that Jade had rejected her offer, she thought she was doing it to get more. She glanced at her with disdain and said sarcastically, You want me to like you? Let me tell you something. It's impossible for someone of your status to enter the foster family. You think I like a woman who sleeps with a man before she gets married? You're an actress. I imagine you're used to criticism, but our Dario is different. He's been outstanding since he was young. I don't want shame to fall on him because of a woman. Hearing this, Jade remembered that no one knew that they were already married. According to Isabel, if a woman slept with another man before they got married, even if they were engaged, she would be considered a hussy. I understand what you mean. Thank you for your reminder. She smiled politely. Isabel had not expected Jade to have such a good attitude. In fact, it could be considered obliging. She was also quite gentle looking and cute. It was just that the disparity in their backgrounds was too great. Miss Winslet, I think you understand what I mean. Think it over and come and talk to me when you're ready. You'll definitely be satisfied with the amount. Jade's expression was neither servile nor arrogant. She had a faint smile on her face as she bowed her head and said indifferently, Don't worry, that day will never come. It's getting very late now. I should go to bed. After saying this, she stood there and waited. Only when Isabel dismissed her with a gesture did she leave very politely, closing the door gently behind her. She thought that Dario would have already returned to his room, but as soon as she closed the door, she fell into his warm embrace. Her heart swelled with love when she realized that he'd been waiting outside the whole time. The edges of her mouth turned up in a faint smile as she relaxed in his arms. Then she raised her head to look at him and said, Right, Dario, I have something to tell you. Tonight we must... She'd wanted to say that they should sleep in separate rooms that night, but Dario interrupted her. I've arranged another room for you. You can sleep there tonight. Her heart skipped a beat. How did he know what I wanted to say? It's miraculous. Did he overhear our conversation? She wondered. Dario read her thoughts and said simply, The room's well soundproofed. I didn't hear your conversation. Don't think too much. Let's go. He then took her to the guest room closest to his own room. A couple of maids were cleaning and tidying it, changing the bed covers to the light green colour that Jade liked the most. Dario had also asked them to light some relaxing incense. When Jade saw the room, she turned to him and asked, How did you know I wanted to sleep in a separate room? There was an unfathomable smile on his face. He didn't answer but touched her soft hair and said dotingly, I'm afraid I'll have to make things difficult for you tonight. How can it be difficult? She asked, looking around. This is the best room I've ever slept in. She had not expected that their guest rooms would be so big and luxurious, with priceless oil paintings on the walls. However, she was still disappointed that she couldn't sleep with him. If you're afraid you might feel lonely tonight, I can sneak over to keep you company. No one will know, he whispered. Then he wrapped his arms around her slim waist. The maids saw this and immediately packed up their cleaning things and tactfully left. Just as Dario was thinking they could maybe have a good time before he returned to his room, his phone rang again. Jade smiled awkwardly. We're destined not to be intimate tonight, she thought. Maybe we're cursed. He wanted to ignore it, but it kept ringing. Jade was afraid it might be important and nudged him. When he took out his phone and saw it was Monica, he frowned. He thought for a long time before answering. What is it? He asked coldly. Dario, bad news. I don't know where Evelyn is. You've got to find her. When did she disappear? He asked faintly with a dark look in his eyes. I don't know. When I got to the hospital, she wasn't in her room. Don't ask so many questions. Just come quickly. It's impossible. There are so many nurses, doctors, and family members with her. How could she just disappear? He asked carelessly. He had no intention of looking for her. His attitude angered Monica. Dario, don't talk nonsense. It was because of you that she tried to kill herself, and now she's missing. Do you think she knew you were going to take Jade to meet your parents today? If you don't have an ounce of conscience, then come out and help me look for her, she sighed. If you don't come, I won't force you, but I really didn't expect you to be so heartless. Monica angrily hung up, and only then did she realize that tears were rolling down her cheeks. She knew he would have come in the past, but now his heart belonged to Jade. Meanwhile, there was a knock on the guest room door and Sharon called out, Dario, are you in there? Come out. I have something to tell you. Jade looked at Dario's serious expression. She was worried that something serious must have happened, especially now that his mother was looking for him. Dario, what is it? Who called? She asked. It's okay. Go take a shower and rest. His eyes softened. He kissed her on the forehead and went to open the door. Episode 324. Time to sleep. The moment Dario opened the door, he spotted the phone in Sharon's hand and immediately understood why she had come to find him. He didn't want Jade to hear the conversation, so he moved away from the door. Jade started to worry. What's happened? She wondered. Why did Dario look so serious after answering the phone, and why did his mother come to find him? Is it just a coincidence? Dario, Evelyn's in trouble, said Sharon nervously. I just received a call from her mother. Dario remained calm. I know. I'll go out once Jade's asleep. What did you say? Why are you waiting for her to fall asleep? The Harpers are desperate. She was surprised that he seemed so indifferent, even when it appeared he already knew the situation. He was too calm. After speaking with her, Dario returned to the guest room, surprising Jade, who had undressed and was about to take a bath. She immediately hid her naked body under the covers and blushed. Dario, I thought you were going out. Why did you come back so quickly? Do you want to take a bath? I'll fill the tub for you. Hang on a minute. He went into the bathroom, ran a hot bath, and added some essential oils that smelled of lemongrass, which was her favorite scent. When the bath was ready, he returned to the bed, lifted Jade out, and gently placed her in the bathtub. What are you doing here? She shyly sank under the bubbles and looked at him curiously. If his grandmother found out they were together like this, she would be furious and accuse her of being a wanton woman. I'll go out once you're asleep, he said gently. If you need to do something, just leave. Don't worry about me. However, Dario insisted on waiting till she fell asleep. He knew it was hard for her to film every day. If he couldn't even help her get a good night's rest, then what right did he have to call himself her husband? Because she was afraid of delaying him, Jade only soaked for a few minutes before getting out of the bath. When she was ready, he carefully put a bathrobe around her and carried her back to bed. Jade felt she was being spoiled like a little princess. The way he doted on her was so sweet. Lying in bed next to her with the lights off, he gently patted her back as if she were a child and slowly coaxed her to sleep. He was just short of singing a lullaby. Dario, how did you know I wanted to sleep in a separate room today? She murmured. Do you have a sixth sense? Did you guess what your grandma was saying? She leaned against his chest. Don't ask so many questions. Just relax and go to sleep. Dario kissed her on the forehead while he continued to rub her back with gentle movements, which made her feel drowsy. In fact, he'd already arranged the guest room for her, not because of his grandmother, but because there were dozens of people in the foster villa between the family members, drivers, maids, and other staff. He could not guarantee that everyone was loyal. Given Jade's high profile, he didn't want to risk any hint of a scandal for her. If the press found out she had a secret lover, the scandal could damage her career. It had been tough for her to get to where she was, and tarnishing her reputation with gossip would be tragic. He didn't want her to be heard, not even on an internet forum. In next to no time, Jade was breathing evenly in his embrace. Dario sighed and kissed her cheeks. I'm sorry, Jade. He knew that his grandmother looked down on her. As she'd grown up in a high society family and in another era, her arrogance was in her very bones. When she'd asked Jade to come to her room, she must have said some very unpleasant things to her. Yet Jade had told him nothing. She had kept smiling and even told him that she had to work hard to make her grandmother like her. She was so positive that it made his heart ache and deepened his love for her. He would have already told his grandmother that they were married, had it not been for Jade's concern that his family would be angry. So she was suffering now, and he resolved to treat her better to make it up to her. Jade had had a long day, and with Dario's help, in less than half an hour, she'd fallen into a deep sleep. He kissed her on the lips, carefully covered her with the quilt, and reluctantly tiptoed out. The first thing Dario did was to ask David to check all the surveillance cameras in the hospital where Evelyn was being treated. Evelyn was Monica's younger sister, and since David had a crush on her, he thought that he would take the matter very seriously. After that, he called Lucas and asked him to immediately send people to search for Evelyn near the hospital. After dealing with those matters, he went downstairs. His parents were waiting for him, anxiety writ large on their faces. His mother frowned. "Why are you taking so long? The Harpers are going crazy from worry." "I was just getting Jade to sleep," he replied calmly. Sharon almost flew into a rage at these words. "Jade's not a child anymore. Why does she need you to sing her lullabies, especially with what's going on? I know you don't like Evelyn, even if it's over between you two. You two were together for more than 20 years. Doesn't it hurt you to see her in trouble?" Episode 325. The Beach. Listening to Sharon's endless scolding, Dario maintained a poker face. He said seriously, "Nothing is more important than Jade getting her sleep." This would have started Sharon off again, but fortunately Donald caught her arm and hushed her. All right, she said. "Your girlfriend is the most important, but now that she's sleeping, will you go and find Evelyn? You know she's the apple of her family's eye. They're already not happy with us, and now she's gone. I want you to find her as soon as possible. I know you can't force feelings, and I won't force the two of you to be together. But she attempted suicide because of you." The more Sharon spoke, the more emotional she became until she could no longer hold back her tears. "Okay, sweetheart," Donald said comfortingly. "Try and calm down before you give yourself an ulcer. Don't say any more. Dario understands. That is your son. Don't you know he'll always do the right thing? Let's go. Let's go and start looking." Sharon nodded. Finding Evelyn was paramount. She asked the driver to bring the car around and went to wait outside. Donald patted Dario's shoulder and said in a deep voice, "Don't blame your mother. She cares about Evelyn. Your mum's very anxious because she's gone missing. Let's go and find her." He caught up with Sharon and left the house. Dario narrowed his eyes. There was an indescribable emotion on his face. He stared in the direction of the guest room for a while before turning and leaving. He rushed to the hospital where Evelyn had been. David was already in the hospital's monitoring room, filtering out the surveillance videos of the corridors near her room. "Have you found anything?" Dario asked. "No, I've gone through all the videos and there's no trace of her," David replied. This was a private hospital and it had a range of surveillance, but there was no sign of Evelyn, either near her room or at the entrance. "It's unbelievable. Can people disappear into thin air?" David wondered. In order to protect the patient's privacy, there were no cameras in the rooms, so they couldn't see what happened just before Evelyn disappeared. Because David hadn't found footage of Evelyn going out, he thought she must still be in the hospital and had been searching for her whereabouts on all the live camera feeds. Dario looked at the surveillance again carefully and finally found some clues. Evelyn had managed to slip out by changing into a nurse's uniform. He saw that 3 hours earlier, a nurse had come out of her room with a tray in her hands. She'd kept her head lowered, as if she were afraid of being recognized. David went to check and found out that a nurse was scheduled to do a medicine round at that time. However, the two nurses have already come out. David found the nurse and interrogated her, discovering that Evelyn had given her money to get her a nurse's uniform. She then told her mother she wanted some privacy to eat her food. Since she'd hardly been eating, her mum was naturally very happy. Evelyn had taken advantage of her solitude to change into the nurse's uniform and quietly slip out. By following her journey through various surveillance cameras in the neighborhood of the hospital and beyond, they had finally figured out where she had gone. She had taken a taxi to Coney Island. Lucas traced her whereabouts and sent it through an accurate GPS location. Dario looked at the time. It was almost midnight. He was afraid that Jade would wake up and look for him, so he wanted to go back to the house. Since he had located Evelyn, he could just send someone else to pick her up. He weighed the pros and cons. His family and the Harpers went back a long way, and she was like a cousin to him. He decided to go to the beach personally. The beach at Coney Island was a famous scenic spot. The promenade was lined with arcades and fairground rides, all closed for the nights. The area was deserted. As David and Dario drove slowly along the shorefront, they spotted a woman with disheveled hair and white clothes standing on the sand. Drifting to them in the night air came the sound of heart-wrenching crying. David stopped the car and pointed the headlights at her. His hands were sweaty on the wheel. Could this be a ghost? He thought. Dario's usual cold expression relaxed a little. He got out of the car without saying a word and walked toward the woman. David quickly followed him down the beach, thinking, could that person be Evelyn? As he came closer, he saw that it was. Evelyn was standing in the sea, the water surging around her knees. Her throat was hoarse from crying. Sensing someone behind her, she turned stiffly and saw Dario. Her face, so filled with despair, instantly brightened. "Darling Dario, you're here for me!" Evelyn moved to hug him, but she clearly felt Dario's rejection. His expression was the one she was most familiar with. So cold, so charming, yet so cold. She took another step back into the sea and burst into tears. He was no longer her darling Dario. He had fallen in love with another woman. He did not like her. Seeing Evelyn retreating into deeper water, David panicked. "This is Monica's sister," he thought. "Monica specifically instructed me to ensure her safety. If something happens to her, I won't be able to bear the consequences." When the seawater reached Evelyn's thighs, he broke out in a sweat. He was afraid that she would lose her mind and continue to walk out to sea. That would be terrible. "Evelyn, calm down. Come out now. It's so cold in there," David said as he walked into the water. However, when he took a step closer, Evelyn took a step back. "Don't come near me. Go away. Go away." Evelyn was getting more and more frantic, and she kept backing away. Episode 326. Only Friends. The waves kept rolling toward them. David could feel a rip current pulling at his legs and worried that one large swell could sweep them all away. "Please, Evelyn, come back to the beach. Your sister and your parents are worried about you. Please, stop before something terrible happens." But she kept walking away from David, and he didn't dare go any further. Evelyn looked as if she was not afraid of death. Her thoughts were spiraling out of control. "So what if something happens? No one will care," she cried out. "He won't even look at me. Even if I die, he won't look at me. No one will care. So why am I still alive? I might as well die." Evelyn stared at Dario's cold face. Her feet kept moving away from the shore, almost beyond her control. The waves pulling at her were cold and she couldn't stop trembling. "Don't think about Dario," David shouted to her over the sound of the crashing waves. "Isn't he just a man? What's the big deal? You're beautiful and smart. Are you afraid that you won't find love? I know how that feels. Your sister has never looked twice at me and that hurts, but I'm still alive. And well, if what you said is true, I'm the one who should be trying to drown myself. I've loved your sister for 20 years. David's voice was choked with tears. "But I only like Dario. I don't want other men," Evelyn cried. "Evelyn, it's about love. Sometimes when we see the happiness of the people we love, doesn't that also make us happy? Now everyone in your family is looking for you. Think about your mother. It's not been easy for her to raise you by herself. Now that you finally have such a happy family, are you willing to leave?" David tried hard to persuade her, but it only seemed to provoke her. She was getting more and more distraught. "I'm not a real part of the Harper family. No matter how good they are to me, I'd still be miserable. Mum, I've let her down so much. It would be easier for her if I was dead." Evelyn's pale face was full of anguish. The seawater reached her waist. David saw that she was unmoved by this soft approach, so he tried being hard on her. "Evelyn, don't talk nonsense. You're so selfish. You just want everyone to be sad for you. Dream on. Hurry up and come back here. Do you know that your family has gone crazy looking for you? And Dario's family too? They've been awake all night. Do you think we have nothing better to do?" David cursed and then walked back to join Dario on the shore. "Dario, say something. If anything happens to Evelyn, both of your families will be dragged in. I don't want to see your families turn against each other." Evelyn couldn't bear to part with her mother, but she really didn't want to live anymore. She clenched her fist tightly and then her gaze fell on Dario, who hadn't said a word. "Darling Dario, if you'll only say you love me, I'll come out of the water." Evelyn looked at him with her last hope. What she received was still indifference. "Evelyn, I've already told you very clearly that I will never love you. You can only be my friend," Dario said coldly. David broke out in a cold sweat. Couldn't Dario say something nice first and coax her to come out? He thought. But he knew that Dario had his reasons. If he lied to her, Evelyn would only do something similar in the future. Therefore, the best way to put an end to this was to make the situation clear to her. Not far from where they stood, more than a dozen luxury cars were speeding toward them. "No, I don't believe it. You must hold a place for me in your heart. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here," Evelyn screamed at the top of her lungs. She covered her ears as if she didn't want to hear anything Dario said. She didn't want to believe that it was true. "If you weren't my cousin, I wouldn't be here." Dario narrowed his dark eyes, which held a trace of emotion. Evelyn felt like there was a knife through her heart. So he meant that he was there only because of their families, not because he liked her. He'd never felt love for her. Her heart broke into pieces. She wept even louder. Why, Dario, I've liked you for so long, but you've never looked at me with love. Not even one look. Please tell me you love me, that you're worried about me. Please tell me that's why you came to me, even if it's a lie. Why are you not willing to lie for me? As long as you say you're worried about me, I'll come out immediately. Evelyn's heart was in a knot. I don't want to lie to you, Dario said expressionlessly. She wasn't worth it. Evelyn let out a mirthless laugh. Dario, you're heartless. Monica's right. You're the most heartless, callous, and indifferent person in the world. Why did you trample on my heart? Even if I die, you won't be sad, will you? She began to laugh hysterically. No, Dario said coldly. Her laughter finally stopped. What replaced her were endless cries of despair. Evelyn took another step back and allowed the seawater to pull at her blouse. Dario, don't you have a conscience? Do you want to kill Evelyn? Sharon, who had just arrived, rushed up and roared at her son. She looked at Evelyn with a worried frown and hurriedly advised, Evelyn, be sensible now. We have something to talk about. Dario was being unkind. I will definitely help you teach him a lesson, but you mustn't do anything stupid. You're still so young. Looking at the heartless Dario, Evelyn felt her heart break all over again. I just want the person I like me. Why is it so difficult? She thought in anguish. As she stood there, one step away from being swept into the uncaring sea, Evelyn's mother Pam came rushing across the sand. Seeing her daughter's plight, she was so frightened that her heart almost beat right out of her chest. Episode 327. The Rescue. Pam stood by the beach and cried out emotionally to her daughter. Please come back to me. You are my dearest, my youngest child. How can you think of leaving your mother like this? Whatever's wrong, I'll help you. She had watched helplessly as her daughter had become like this and had shared her pain. She had long felt that Evelyn was depressed, but she had never really thought that she would do such foolish things. Evelyn had lacked a father figure during her childhood. She had never felt safe until Pam had married Rex Harper. But then Evelyn had met Dario. It was only then that she had come out of her shell and had stopped being such an introvert. But Pam had never thought that she would fall in love with him and end up like this. Mum, I can't bear to part from you, but I really don't want to live anymore. My heart hurts, Mum. Do you know what I mean? Evelyn burst into a fresh wave of tears. Evelyn, come here, Rex called, his eyes full of worry and anger. As her stepfather, he had treated her with a lot of affection. Couldn't she think about her family? Come out quickly, he demanded. Have you thought about your mother's feelings? Do you know how worried she is? She can't eat or sleep worrying about you. If you leave just like this, what will it do to her? Evelyn still didn't move, and Rex almost rushed forward, but he was afraid that Evelyn would do something stupid. As more cars arrived, the beach was filling up with people who had come to help find Evelyn. Dario's sister Diane said, Evelyn, calm down a little. Look at me. I'm already in my 30s and I'm still single, but aren't I still living well? Come out. I'll introduce you to a man better than Dario. You're outstanding. There must be a lot of men who like you. No one will like me anymore. All of you go away, go away. Evelyn saw them surrounding her with their voices, crowding her, threatening. She stepped back and her foot slipped on a rock. She disappeared under the water. Everyone's heart missed a beat. Pam even let out a violent scream. My Evelyn, what were you thinking? What can I do? It was high tide and the waves were fierce. If someone didn't swim out to save her, she might die in the sea. While the crowd on the beach descended into anxious confusion, Dario calmly told Lucas to go and save her. When Lucas was in the Special Forces, he had often trained in rough seas like this, so saving Evelyn would be an easy task for him. He dived straight into the frothing waves, and within moments came up with Evelyn in his arms and carried her to the beach. Evelyn coughed violently and spat out seawater. She was a little weak, but otherwise unharmed. Her mother, Pam, had fainted from the fright, but she slowly rallied after Lucas's rescue. The first thing she did when she recovered consciousness was to confirm her daughter's health. Seeing that she was safe and sound, she finally let out a sigh of relief. Mother and daughter hugged each other and cried. Promise me you'll never do something that stupid again. You scared me to death, Pam said, holding on to her tightly. Her daughter's body was as cold as ice, and Pam's heart ached. Lucas took off his coat and wrapped it around Evelyn. Evelyn only shifted her weak gaze to Dario. Her eyes were empty and unfocused. No one knew what she was thinking. Her tears had all dried up. Dario! Dario! Evelyn cried hoarsely. Her eyes were constantly searching for him. Sharon pushed her son toward him, and Evelyn used her last bit of strength to throw herself into his arms. It was as if his embrace was the best place in the world. Unexpectedly, Dario only frowned and didn't push her away. Pam pleaded with him. Dario, I beg of you. Evelyn can't manage without you. She likes you so much. Can't you just try to accept her? Just give it a try. She didn't care that she was begging. All she wanted was to make her daughter happy because her daughter was her only hope in the world. Dario pursed his lips and didn't say anything. Then, in front of everyone, he carried Evelyn to his car. Surprise flashed in Lucas and David's eyes. They didn't expect him to make such a move. They soon caught up to him, and Lucas got into the driver's seat. Dario placed Evelyn in the back seat and sat down beside her, but he didn't hold her anymore. Evelyn felt like her heart was about to jump out of her chest. Her tired eyes stared intently at him, deeply afraid that she would miss a single detail. This was the first time he had taken the initiative to hug her. She felt so happy. His embrace had been so warm. She wished that she could live in his arms for the rest of her life. Where to, Dario? The hospital? Lucas inserted the key and asked calmly. Dario was about to confirm that when Evelyn pulled his sleeve and said nervously, Dario, I don't want to go back to the hospital. It's cold there and there is no you. I want to go home. Please, can you take me home? Evelyn wanted to hug him, but was afraid that he would reject her. However, just pulling his sleeve made her very happy. Dario looked at her and nodded at Lucas. Go to the Harper house. Evelyn put one hand over her heart and pinched her thigh. She couldn't believe the way that he was looking her at that moment. His eyes were much gentler than before. Could I be dreaming? She thought. David's expression was solemn and he didn't say anything, but his eyes showed his surprise. Dario is usually so cold to her, he thought. Why is he treating her so well now? Could it be that he's really moved by Evelyn? Or is he afraid that she'll do something stupid again? He didn't dare ask. Episode 328. Until next time. You're so good to me, Dario, Evelyn said as she tugged on his sleeves, overcome with emotion. She looked at his handsome face and her heart was instantly filled with warmth. But just when she thought that she still had some hope, Dario completely shattered her heart. Don't let this happen again. Do you understand? He said coldly, staring into her misty eyes. His cold, harsh words were deliberately alienating. He put on a poker face, pursed his thin lips, and refused to say anything more. Evelyn felt even colder than when she'd been standing in the sea. She hugged herself, trying to warm herself up, but it was useless. Faced with Dario's coldness and the way he'd just spoken, she actually felt a trace of fear. She slowly let go of his sleeve and felt a stabbing pain in her heart. I was mistaken. He hasn't changed. He's still the man who will never fall in love with me. He's still the same cold and arrogant tycoon, she thought. She sucked in a breath of air and closed her eyes tightly. She didn't want to see Dario in this way. She would rather stay in the moment when he had carried her up the beach. When they arrived at her family home, David carried Evelyn to her room. Evelyn's parents and Dario's arrived soon after. Their family's private doctor also rushed over as soon as possible. After examining Evelyn, he told them that there were no major problems. It was just that her body was overstretched and she needed a good rest. Pam, who was also very tired, finally let out a sigh of relief. What she had feared the most was that her daughter would suffer long-term complications. Evelyn had changed out of her wet clothes and gotten into bed. Her eyes were empty as she stared at the ceiling. They were bloodshot, but there was not a trace of sleepiness in them. Sharon came into her room and said gently, Evelyn, you should take the chance to rest. Don't think about it anymore. It's good that you're fine. You can't imagine how frightened your mother was. Evelyn looked away. She felt a stirring of guilt. It was almost dawn. Just like David had said, so many people were tormented because of her. You should go back downstairs. I'm fine. Sorry I was so willful, she said remorsefully. It's good that you're fine, but next time don't scare us like that. Sharon's heart ached as she went up and patted her head. As a child, Evelyn had been so sweet and gentle. She couldn't believe that her behavior would ever be so extreme. It seemed that Jade's visit to the foster family had dealt her a huge blow. The rest of the two families came in to say goodnight. Evelyn turned to Dario, who had not spoken to her since they had arrived home. She bit her lower lip tightly and grasped the sheet in her hand. Then she gathered her courage and whispered, Dario, can you stay with me? I'll be fine in a while. The atmosphere in the room became tense. Everyone held their breath and turned their eyes to Dario. Just when they thought that he would resolutely refuse, he nodded. Everyone was stunned, but they didn't say anything and left Evelyn's room as if nothing had happened. When Evelyn saw him nod, she was so excited that she shed tears. She really hadn't expected him to agree. Her eyes were wide with joy. She wanted to cherish every moment of being with him. There were only the two of them left in the room. Evelyn leaned against the headboard and stared intently at Dario, who was sitting in a chair at her bedside. It was good just to watch him. Dario's expression was serious. From time to time, he took out his phone to check it. It seemed like he was waiting for something important, but she didn't care. As long as he was there, it would be fine. "Dario, it's so kind of you to stay with me," she said. "There won't be a next time." Dario raised his dark eyes to meet hers. They were as unfathomable as the bottom of a lake. You could never know what he was thinking. Evelyn felt a stabbing pain in her chest and couldn't hold back the tears. "Do you mean that you won't come and see me again?" she asked. This was not the result she wanted. "I don't have the energy to care about someone who will only hurt me and ignore the feelings of my family." Dario's cold words contained no trace of emotion. Evelyn felt anxious. She sat up quickly. "Dario, I know I was wrong. I'll never do anything stupid again. Really, I promise. Please don't do this." She became more and more agitated. She was afraid that she would never see him again. "If I can't see him, what will I do? Here's my life," she thought. There was a knock on the door and Pam came in with a bowl of chicken soup and a gentle smile on her face. "Dario, it's already so late. Are you hungry? Monica just made some supper. You should eat some too," she said. Monica appeared behind Pam. An inexplicable emotion flashed across her eyes as she held out the bowl of soup to Dario. "Mum, what are you talking about?" she said with a smile. "Didn't you specially make the chicken soup for Dario? Why are you telling him that I made it? Dario, you haven't eaten all night. Are you hungry? You should at least try a few mouthfuls." "I'm not hungry," Dario said. Pam's expression changed. She couldn't understand Monica's actions. "Even if you're not hungry, it's still polite to eat," Monica said. "This was specially prepared for you by my mother. Are you trying to insult her?" She forcefully placed the bowl in front of Dario. "I don't like to eat at night," he said. Monica was clearly getting angry, but she still had a smile on her face. She handed the bowl to him. "Just this once, make an exception. It's been a difficult night for my mum. If you don't eat it, won't it be a waste of her kindness?" Episode 329. Monica's Betrayal. When David heard that Monica had made the chicken soup, he rushed in and snatched the bowl from her hand. "Hey, Monica, Dario might not appreciate your soup, but I do. I say, Dario, you really don't know how to appreciate good fortune. This was made by Monica herself." He raised the bowl to his lips and drained it all, not even using a spoon. "David, stop," Monica said. David's expression changed. As soon as he finished swallowing, a strange feeling spread from his lips and down through his body. He felt a wave of heat, as if there was desire spreading from his heart and igniting his loins. He looked at Monica with a shocked expression and then at the soup in his hand. He understood why she had tried to force Dario to drink this bowl. His eyes were filled with complicated emotions. There was anger, disappointment, and deep love for her. His legs went weak and he almost fell, catching himself on the edge of a table. Dario went to support him and asked, "What's wrong?" "This soup was drugged," David said in a weak voice. Looking at Monica, he shouted angrily, "Monica, what did you put in there? You actually tried to drug him?" He stuck his fingers down his throat until he retched and vomited up the soup he had just eaten, but he still felt dizzy. Some of the drug must have remained in his system. Monica hadn't expected Dario to finish all the soup, so she had added a high dose of the aphrodisiac. She hadn't expected that it would be David who suffered the consequences. She gave them a blank look. David covered his throat and sighed helplessly. "Monica, I thought you were better than this. I always thought that you were a kind woman. How could you do such a thing?" His romantic notion of her had completely collapsed, but Monica looked like she didn't care at all. "Monica, is what David said true?" Pam asked. She couldn't believe that she would do such a thing. No wonder she had wanted to make supper for no reason and had insisted on bringing it over herself. It also explained why she had wanted Pam to take the credit. Pam had just assumed she was being kind. She had never dreamed her daughter had been adding drugs to the dinner. Monica coldly glanced at David and then at Dario. "I don't know what you guys are talking about. David, don't make up nonsense just because you ate something bad." Evelyn watched all this in shock. She remembered Monica once promising she would help her. She hadn't expected that she would use such a method, though. She was afraid that Dario would be angry and hurriedly climbed out of the bed. "Dario, don't misunderstand," she said. "This has nothing to do with me. I didn't know that my sister would do such a thing." Monica's expression turned ugly. She hadn't expected her sister to push all the blame onto her, even though it had indeed been her own idea. Dario merely glanced at them with indifference and then respectfully said to Pam, "We should go. You all need to get some rest." He helped David walk away. David's eyes were full of pain. Before he left, he glared at Monica and said with disappointment, "Monica, even if you wanted your sister to be with Dario, you didn't have to do it in such a mean way. And I'm telling you, even if Dario had been the one to eat this bowl of soup, he wouldn't have done as you wished. You underestimate him." He knew Dario too well. If he had drunk the soup just then, he would have rather died than done anything that would hurt Jade. Dario pulled David away expressionlessly. They had just left the house when David collapsed. Dario got an arm around him and dragged him to the car. David kept mumbling Monica's name, crying and laughing. Jade had once accidentally taken this drug, so Dario was very clear about how it functioned. He had just never expected Monica to attempt to administer it to him. He sighed and forcefully threw David into the back seat of the car. He picked up a bottle of mineral water and splashed it onto his face. The cold water woke David up instantly. When he opened his eyes, he found that his goddess Monica was gone. A handsome face that looked like an iceberg was leaning over him. With a drunk giggle, he said, "Hey, Dario, what do you want? I'm afraid you're not really my type." Dario narrowed his eyes. He mercilessly poured the rest of the water on David's face while David rolled around on the back seat talking nonsense. "My Monica, my goddess, why would she do such a thing?" Dario drove him to the hospital and left him in the care of the doctors. As soon as David was in safe hands, he got back in his car and sped home. As Monica was about to leave, Pam stepped in front of her. Although she was only Monica's stepmother, she felt she had done something wrong in failing to properly educate her. "Monica, how could you do such a thing? Do you want to ruin your sister's innocence?" "I did it for her own good, otherwise she'd never get Dario," Monica said. "You can't force them together like that. If the Fosters find out about this, what will they think of us?" Pam said sternly. She rarely got angry with Monica, but this time, Monica was deeply in the wrong. Monica sighed and said impatiently, "That's enough. I know I was wrong. I'm very tired now. I need to go and rest." Her plan had backfired. She'd intended to lock the door after Dario drank the bowl of soup and let Evelyn and Dario's artificial lust take its course. Then, Dario would have been forced to marry her even if he didn't like her. Episode 330. When I was young. I was sure that my plan would work. I never expected David to turn up out of the blue, and I didn't expect Dario to turn down the soup, Monica thought. My plan is ruined. Monica's scheme had been designed to ensure that Dario ended up with Evelyn rather than Jade, but it hadn't worked. "Monica, you need to go and apologize in person. What on earth were you thinking?" Pam said in a stern voice. She didn't want the Fosters to look down on the Harpers, and she didn't want Monica's reputation to be damaged. "I understand what I need to do, Mum," Monica replied sullenly, and she left the room. Evelyn, who was lying on the bed, burst into tears. "I never thought that Monica would do something so drastic for me," she thought sadly. "I want Dario to know that it didn't have anything to do with me. I can't let him think that it was me." Pam misunderstood why Evelyn was crying and said, "Evelyn, don't cry. I know you liked Dario since you were young, but we can't force him to fall in love with you. I promise that I'll even find you an even better man." Evelyn buried her head under the blanket, her thin shoulders rising up and down as she cried. She had tried her best to get Dario to notice her, studying hard and learning new skills, always with a view to him falling in love with her. But it hadn't worked. "Mum, I really love him. I don't know what to do to make him love me back. I just can't forget him," Evelyn said between sobs. She was so distressed that she found it hard to breathe. Pam's heart ached as she stroked her daughter's hair. "Evelyn, don't be like this. Even if he doesn't like you in that way, you mustn't do anything stupid again. If you don't respect yourself, how can you expect others to respect you? If you want him to love you first you have to love yourself. If you hurt yourself to get his attention, then the only type of attention he will give you is pity. Please listen to me. Trust your mum. The most important thing for you to do is recover and become healthy again." Evelyn sobbed and nodded as she listened to her mother's words. Then she threw herself into Pam's warm embrace. "Mum, I know you're right. I won't do anything stupid anymore. I know that all I achieved was to make him feel disgusted with me. I'll get better, and then maybe he'll begin to like me," she said in a hopeful voice. "I believe in you, Evelyn, but I need you to know that if you do anything stupid like that again, then I'll go with you. Do you understand?" Pam said. looking into her daughter's eyes with a serious expression. I only have one daughter. If she dies, then I'll want to die too, Pam thought. Evelyn frowned as she listened to her. She put her hands to her face and said, Mum, I know it was wrong. I won't try to kill myself again. I'll listen to you. You must never hurt yourself because of me. I can promise you that I won't, but only if you make a promise to me too, Pam said. Promise me that you'll never try to kill yourself again. Okay, I promise, Evelyn said as she sobbed. She leaned against her mother and nestled into her as if she had returned to her childhood. Then they chatted for a long time until Evelyn finally fell into a deep sleep in her mother's arms. It was just before 5 o'clock in the morning, and the sun had already risen when Dario returned to the foster family home. He went to his room, showered, and then walked into the corridor toward the guest room where Jade had spent the night. In the corridor, he unexpectedly met his grandma. Isabel always got up early to do her morning exercises, and she was surprised to see her grandson. Dario, have you just come back? If you're not going to bed, then where are you going? She asked, suspiciously. Good morning, Grandma. I'm going to find Jade, he replied honestly as he continued walking toward the guest room. Isabel frowned, clearly dissatisfied with his answer, and stepped in front of him to block his way. Stop right there, Dario. You have to act properly. You must sleep in separate rooms. Just imagine if news of you skulking to her room got out, Isabel said in a raised voice. It doesn't matter. She'll be part of the family sooner or later anyway, Dario replied as he walked around her, unlocked the guest room door with a spare key and went inside. Isabel was left standing in the middle of the corridor, feeling helpless and angry. Dario's grandfather, Mr. Walter, had awakened after Dario had left the house the night before and had been told about Jade and Dario and about Isabel's misgivings. He was familiar with Jade because he had often watched her on TV. He had seen Isabel get up and had followed her into the corridor. Isabel, why do you have such a big problem with Jade? I think she seems like a nice young lady. At least she works hard and supports herself. She's not a greedy woman. Isabel turned around and sighed helplessly. Actually, it's not that I don't like her. It's just that I think Dario can find someone better. With everything that he has going for him, he could have any woman he wants. Why does he have to choose an actress? It's your conservative thinking, Isabel. What's wrong with acting? I often see her on TV, so she must be quite successful. Besides, it has to be Dario's choice whom he falls in love with. You should believe in our grandson's judgment, Walter said, trying to comfort his wife. Isabel frowned as she stared at the guest room door. Walter saw her worried face and went to her. Try not to worry about it all. Dario's young and he has his life to lead. We should enjoy our old age and let the young ones do as they wish. Isabel's eyes were filled with regret and helplessness. It's all my fault, she said sadly. When I was young, I focused too much on my work and I neglected my family. Now I have lots of spare time, but Dario is Sharon's son and there's not much I can do except worry.